TheEdgeOnAir.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Chet Buchanan from 98.5 KLUC in Las Vegas. When you come to my town, I will buy you a beer. You track me down, I'll buy you a beer. But you have to let me know that you're listening to the Hoppe and SuperRICH Show.
What's up? This is the Hoppe and SuperRICH Show. I'm Ryan Hoppe.
And I'm Ryan SuperRICH.
To call the show, it's 630-785-2510 and tweet it at us. I'm at Hoppe Radio 893. What's your Twitter handle?
At Ryan SuperRICH.
And on the phone line from the nationally syndicated morning show down in Charlotte, Ace is on the phone line from the Ace and TJ Show. What's up, Ace?
Hey, man, how's it going? You make it sound very important about when you say the nationally syndicated. I love it.
Now, before we get into everything you've done in radio, I got to meet you at last year's morning show boot camp, and I got to network with you. What was your favorite memory from there?
My favorite memory of morning show boot camp this past year? Well, there were two. Obviously, we were honored to be selected as one of the 25 most influential radio shows of the past 25 years. I have no idea how we got on that list, but we have the statue that says we were, so that was really cool. And the few minutes we got to spend and talk and share and reminisce, talking about Kid Craddock, who was a radio mentor of ours and been a tremendous amount in our career, to be able to sit up there and talk with a bunch of other people that all knew him and share stories and talk about our fondest memories of him and the impact that he'd had on so many lives in radio was a really special thing to have been asked to be a part of that. That was really cool. We were very thrilled to be a part of that.
What is your favorite memory of Kid?
One of the first times we met him, he used to host a convention in Dallas every year, and we had flown, and we really had just started out. We were working in Alexandria, Louisiana at the time, and we first time we'd ever met him, and we'd been there for a couple of days. The convention was the last day. He was outside smoking, and TJ smoked at the time, so I'd walked out with TJ because we had some questions we wanted to ask Kid, and we went up to him and said, we have a problem. Can we ask you a quick question? He was like, absolutely, that's what I'm here for. You know, he always talked real fast. He's smoking a cigarette, and we said, we're not very good at doing games on the radio. Do you have any suggestions? And he took a long drag off a cigarette and goes, well, then don't do effing games. And it was such a simple answer that, okay, if we're not good at it, don't do it. He goes, that's easy. If you're not good at doing games, do things that play to your strengths. And it was a really simple answer to a simple question that was perfectly timed the way he presented it. You know, like the light bulb went off. Oh, I get what he's saying. If you're not good at it, don't do it. And from that quick meeting grew a friendship and a business association that lasted, you know, for years and years to come, right up until his death about a year ago.
And before we get more into your radio career and everything, where did you grow up as a kid, and how was your childhood like?
I grew up in central Louisiana. I'm a kid of the 80s. I'm 45 years old, about to be 46 later this month. And my mom was a school teacher. My dad was in insurance when I was growing up. Then he ran a mobile home dealership. My parents separated when I was 10 and got divorced. But my dad was always close around. He always lived right there in the area. We saw him all the time. My parents got along, pretty well, so that was never really a big problem. I spent my time, loved music, loved sports. It was baseball, basketball, football, baseball, basketball, football, and all through high school. I played basketball and tennis, and went to college at Louisiana State University, LSU, in Baton Rouge, and that's where my love of radio actually kind of began to manifest itself, because I didn't know what I was going to do when I went to college. I just wanted to be involved in something that had to do with media and entertainment. And I hadn't really been exposed to many different things, but thanks to a trip to the local radio station when I was in high school with this girl that I knew, I kind of had an idea that I would love radio, and I really got to work in the business a little bit in college, and that's where I just fell in love with it.
What was it about like radio and media and entertainment that drew you in?
I think the first thing was I was always drawn naturally to entertaining people. I don't know if that makes me, egocentric or what, but at an early age I learned it's fun to make people laugh. It's fun to entertain people. Mm-hmm. And so was around TV stuff, and in high school and middle school, and anytime somebody needed to speak at an event, they got me to do it and all that kind of stuff. And I was always the host of, whatever talent show, and we were always doing stuff in the talent, that kind of stuff, and I always enjoyed it. But I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know what I would do going forward, but I knew I had the ability to speak to people. so when I went and really got to see a radio station, see how it worked, it was the first place where my deep love of music and my deep love of communicating with people kind of came together. And it's the same thing to this day, even though radio has changed so much. It's the same thing to this day that I tell people that I still love the very same thing about it, is that when you break it down in its core, radio is the only medium that gives you an opportunity to really touch somebody on an emotional level, person to person. They can call and talk to you. You can talk to them. I mean, podcasts and on now sometimes afford you that opportunity depending on how they're set up. But that intimacy that you don't get and that emotion that I don't think you get, that array of emotions, you can't get in any other form of entertainment. You know, if you don't like what the news anchor's wearing that day, or you think they said something stupid, you can't call and berate them and have a funny one-on-one conversation, but you can with the person on the radio, and I think that's a really special thing.
And who were some of your radio influences as you were growing up and getting into the industry?
Yeah, well, locally, when I grew up in a small town in central Louisiana, and the radio station that I listened to, there were two. 93 QID, they had these guys on in the morning, Atwood and the Captain, that were kind of the hot morning show at the time. The guys across town from them were Hollywood and Uncle Larry. Hollywood went on to be my first radio boss of a paying radio station, and he was the voice guy for our network for a while, and he's still a very, very dear friend to this day. So those were the first people that I ever heard and became familiar with and really became involved and interested in what they were doing, because they had their little radio battle in my small town of 50,000 people at the time. And then as I got to really pay attention to radio, the first few people I fell in love with, Scott Shannon was a huge influence, because radio was in a very transitional time, and he was just so hot. And he went to pirate radio in L.A. when I was in college and began that station that was huge for a minute and flamed out. But during that time, I was drawn to him. And when I was doing nights, especially when I first got started, I listened to air checks constantly of people like Cadillac Jack, who was working at Pirate in L.A., and Domino, who was working in Atlanta, that I was constantly stealing from those people. And then I began to, as we shifted into morning, I began to understand things like what Stern does is amazing, tremendous, the way he communicates with an audience. And I've always told people, no matter what you think of him and what he does on the radio, you have to understand the psyche behind it, because I realized that I wouldn't be able to do what I do today, and TJ wouldn't be doing what he does today, were it not for Stern changing the game completely. And I would never feel comfortable doing a lot of the things that he's done in the past on the radio, because it's not my personality. But I understand that from a radio standpoint, he changed everything and gave everyone that freedom to be personal and to be real and to do the things that we do today. So, obviously, he was a tremendous influence.
What is it like when you get to listen to these shows as a kid, and then you get to meet all these guys, let's say at these radio conferences or even working with them? What is that like as a radio geek?
It's still the coolest thing. I still get excited by the simple fact that 16 years ago, we had dinner with Scott Shannon, thanks to Jeff of Jeff and Jer, who I didn't mention as a radio mentor. Kid Craddock and Jeff and Jer were both just massive influences, even on a more personal level, because they were people that we spent time talking with, we pick up the phone and talk to. But Jeff from Jeff and Jer in San Diego, we had a van at a radio convention one night, and we were going to the mall. And Jeff wanted to go, and he brought Scott Shannon with him. And I was praying we didn't wreck the van, because he was just telling radio stories. And I thought, this is the greatest night of my life ever. And we went to J.C. Penney's or something, because Jeff had to go to the mall. And we were wandering through the mall in Dallas with Shannon. And he's just telling radio stories. And, I was just a wide-eyed, 28-year-old kid. It was like, this is incredible. This was like 17 years ago or so. And we had dinner at an Outback Steakhouse. And we were trying to decide what we were going to do next in our careers. And he just took this time, and we got to know him. Then when we moved to Charlotte, he called and checked on us. And we've kind of remained in somewhat in contact, not that often through the years, but anytime we run into him. To be in Chicago last year, and when he walked up and, just kind of grabs on him, I hadn't seen you in a long time. That, to me, I'm geeking out inside. I get so excited, because I still can't believe that this guy that I listen to is, is my radio friend. And I said, if I'm in New York, I can call him and he'll answer the phone, and that blows my mind. And just the same as it did when we first became friends with Kid and ended up, going to Dallas. You'd call him and meet up for a dinner or whatever. That just, I cannot even grasp how cool that is. One of the stations that we're on is on for a complete geek radio moment. One of the stations we are on is in Florida, and the station happens to be owned by a group that is run by Steve Kingston, the former head of Z100 in New York. In the 80s, he was the general manager and operations manager when it became huge, when they first went on there. And he was there for years and years and years. He's a radio legend. And our business manager called and said, Kingston wants to call and talk to you. What's your cell number? I'm going to give him your cell number. What? And so he said, go home. He's going to call you like 3 o'clock today. And at 3 o'clock, my phone rings, and it's flipping Steve Kingston calling me at home. And I told everybody later, I said, what Steve Kingston doesn't know is while I'm explaining to him how our show works from a technical standpoint, I could not sit still in my office at home. I'm just walking, because the whole time I'm thinking, oh, my God, Steve Kingston has my cell phone number. Cool on the outside, flipping out on the inside, because I'm still such a silly radio geek that I get excited at any opportunity to meet somebody who's kind of a radio hero like that.
Now, Ace, with all the radio mentors that you have had over the years, what is some of the best advice they have given you?
Really, several things. One, the Kid telling us that if you don't do well at games, don't do it. Two, Jeff and Jair told us one time, we had breakfast with them in New Orleans, and they both said the same thing. I think they phrased it something along the lines of care, but not too much. Because there's a fine line, especially for me, I can be a little bit hot-headed. I don't know if that goes with the red hair or what, but a little temperamental, and I get frustrated easily with things. And their point was an excellent one. Look, if something goes wrong during the show, just go with it. Just have fun with it. That's the best thing you can do. You want perfection, but that's not going to happen. So don't let those things distract you. Those two pieces of advice, play to your strengths always. Don't do something because you hear everybody else on the radio doing. Do what you think is fun for you. Do what you find entertaining, because that's where your audience is going to find out who you really are, and that's what they're going to like. Doing things that you think are going to work because everybody else is doing them is never a good move, and we found that out early on. So those were two huge pieces of advice that we got.
Now let's talk a little bit about your co-host. How did you guys meet and get together to form your show?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. We grew up in the same area. We grew up about an hour apart from each other. We played each other in high school sports without knowing it, obviously. We didn't know each other at the time. My dad graduated from the same high school that TJ graduated from, obviously, 30 years apart or whatever. And turns out when we started talking, we knew a lot of the same people. My cousin was his second grade teacher, that kind of thing. So he started working part-time at the radio station that I had just started working full-time at when we got out of college. It was 93 QID, KQID in Alexandria, Louisiana. Now it's Q93. And I had worked there part-time for 2 summers before when I was in college. And they offered me the overnight job. And I had moved into my mom's house and was, living there just trying to get something on the books as having worked in radio somewhere. And I was doing midnight to 6, and TJ was working on the weekends there at that radio station. And I was the only other single person on the staff. We were the same age. We started hanging out and talking, and that's kind of how our friendship developed. And then when they moved me to the night show, 7 to midnight, and 5 months later, they moved him to overnights, and we moved into an apartment together. And so for about a year and a half or so, we were just a little over a year, we just hung out, talked about radio, listened to air check tapes. We'd critique each other's air check. We just were completely absorbed in women and radio for about a year.
When you first met TJ, did you know that this was going to be your co-host for life? Or what was it about him that drew you in?
He explains it best. He said before, he told somebody once, it was as if when we met, you knew if we'd known each other in high school, we would have been best friends. That we both were entertained by the same things. We came from similar backgrounds. We found similar things entertaining. We liked a lot of the same music. We had a lot of the same references. But we were both entertaining in a different way. He is, in my opinion, the funniest, fastest person with a joke I've ever encountered on the radio. I don't care who you've got. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me who anybody puts up. I know somebody who's funnier and wittier and has a completely different take on things and can see things that other people can't see. It's just his gift. I think I am entertaining in a different way and in a more goofy way, and the two things just kind of melded together. You know, we first started hanging out, and then he would come in when I was doing 10 to midnight. I was doing 7 to midnight. He would come in a little after 10, and we'd do like an hour or so just together, hanging out. You know, oh, this is good, that's good, that wasn't so good, we like that. And that's where we kind of started to feel like this could really be something. We think we could do something here. And then the radio station that we worked at went into bankruptcy. A lot of the guys left. We were both young. I was 23 years old, and the program director, when he left, he told him, "You're going to have to make this guy the PD, or he's going to leave. You're going to be left high and dry." And so I became the PD, and TJ became the MD and the APD. I guess I was 22 years old. And the first thing we did was make ourselves the morning show, and haven't looked back.
Well, what was the first town that you and TJ were heard in, and what was that experience like to actually be on the radio and have people listening and everything?
Yeah, it was so cool. The first place that we did mornings together was at 93 QID, KQID in Alexandria, right, Louisiana market. And I think now it's like 220 something. At the time, I think it was maybe 202 or something like that. And it was the hometown station, one of the two stations we had grown up listening to. So for us, that was really exciting. I had worked part-time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which at the time was Market 82, where LSU is when I was in college. I had gotten a part-time job down there for the last, I guess, year and a half doing that. And that was a totally different experience, though, because I was coming in part-time on the weekends, and I was the fill-in guy. I did swing and all that kind of stuff. But this was our first, this is your show. And people that I knew that I'd gone to high school with still, you know, were hanging. They thought, that's really cool. And then when we started to see some growth and the station started to really take off and we were totally in control of the thing, it was just a really special time that I don't know that you can ever really appreciate fully until you look back on it, because we were working so hard. We would get to the radio station at 6 a.m. and I wouldn't leave until 7 o'clock at night. And I would go to my apartment right down the road and have something to eat, and my now wife, then girlfriend, was there. And I'd go to bed. I'd get the next morning. That's all we did, 6 days a week. And then we'd go out on the weekends and have a good time and start over again. But you look back on it and realize how special that time was. The freedom that you had that you don't have today, the opportunities that you have that you don't have today to just learn and just try stuff. And if this might not work, I'm going to try and see. And we had such a ridiculous level of freedom to figure out who we were and what we were doing that, you know, was so exciting, because now if it failed, it sucked, that failed. We don't do that anymore. I got another idea. And you didn't know who you were or what you were doing quite yet. There was just you were completely uninhibited with what was going on.
You guys have been in Charlotte for a long time now, and sort of describe how the town of Charlotte has sort of embraced you guys as a show.
It's been unbelievable. We've been in Charlotte. We started in Charlotte 16 years ago now, and we started on a different radio station. And almost 3 years ago, we couldn't see eye to eye on a new contract, and we were off in the market for 7 months. We're still doing our syndicated stations, but off in the market for 7 months. Then we came back, and now we're in Charlotte on Channel 96.1, which is a Clear Channel station. But we originally started, and we came to a radio station that we came into the market and listened first, because another piece of advice that we got from both Kid and Jeff and Jer was never go somewhere where somebody's doing your gig. And that was probably, of the three greatest pieces of advice, that would be number 3. We came to the market, we sat in a hotel and listened one morning to several different radio stations and realized there's nobody doing what we do here. There's a hole here that's wide open for somebody to come in and be who we are. And when we came in, probably 6 months in was the first time we started seeing, okay, this is going to happen. We started really feeling like something was really happening. And then that was about the time that we had a terrible situation here where a police officer was killed while trying to stop a shoplifter. And we started a simple fundraiser that ended up raising over $200,000 for his family. Like, it cars lined up out in the street, and
Wow.
it was everywhere. We were all over television. We were all over the newspapers. And from that point, it just exploded. And, for 10 years there, however long we were across the street, we could do no wrong. And as much as radio has changed, obviously it's a very different world now. But the fact that we're still in this town and still very successful and still very profitable, and we still have really high ratings is just crazy. I mean, the latest book came out. I haven't actually seen it, but they just told us we were number one, women 25-54. We're on a top 40 station. That is kind of unheard of, but we'll take it. We're very blessed. The people here have been extremely loyal, and you figure you cross the street and go somewhere else, and you're gone for 7 months, and the first time you show up back at number one again, 18 to 34-year-olds. That was, it's quite a blessing to have had the opportunity to be here, and it's why we stayed. Quite honestly, we had opportunities to go other places years ago, and decided that we would rather stay here. It's a wonderful town. It's a great place to raise a family. Each of us had just had kids, and we thought we really like it here. Let's just stay and grow the show in a different way, rather than move and start over somewhere else. And to be quite honest, the money was a good deal where we'd probably have to take a pay cut to move somewhere else to start over, even though long term it might have been more profitable. It's worked out okay. They've been just a wonderful group of people to us.
How hard was that for you and TJ when you guys are gone for 7 months, and even though you're in the same town you've been in forever, that town can't listen to you on the radio, but every other city is. How hard was that for you guys?
Well, it was strange because people thought we just weren't working or we were out of work if they didn't know the situation. And because we just disappeared. When we were leaving across town, with 7 days left, it was the CBS-owned station. They made the decision to just take us off the air. So literally, I'd gone out to the bathroom about 9:45, and I walked back in and told everybody, show ended at 10, and I said, hey, something's going on here, because I think today's the day. Now, we had been in radio, obviously, long enough to know this is how radio works. So we were planned and prepared for this scenario. So they came in and said, we're going to take you off the air. We're going to pay you for your final 10 days of your contract, but you're not going to do another show here. So we disappeared, which was a great gift to us because we had the Ace and TJ app. We had our website ready to go to broadcast on the internet because we still had the internet rights to the show. So we disappeared on a Friday. It hit the front page of the newspaper on Saturday, and we didn't say a word until Sunday night. We put it up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. And that morning, our website, by 6:20, our website had crashed because we couldn't keep up with the number of people trying to check out the show and find out what was happening. And it was in June that we launched our app, and that brought a lot of people to the show because people started to be able to find it. Obviously not as many people as have it now, but people could find us and carry us with them on their phone, and that was a huge help. But it was so strange that people would say, well, what are you doing now? I say, I'm still going to work every day doing a radio show. You just can't, you're not able to hear it on the radio. So it was just a weird feeling knowing that you're doing some cool stuff and nobody, like your neighbors aren't hearing it anymore. It was rather odd, especially when you finally figured out that everybody thought we were unemployed for 7 months.
Now let's talk about your charity case band and maybe some of the other charities that you do.
Oh, cool. We have Charity Case is all part of Ace and TJ's Grin Kids.
Right.
So in the 16 years that we've been in Charlotte, our radio family has been responsible for raising over, I don't know the exact number now, but it's close to 7.5, but over $7 million for charity. That includes a variety of things. Over $200,000 for the police officer that I mentioned earlier. When Hurricane Katrina hit, we ended up turning our entire radio station parking lot into, I don't know how you would describe it. It's almost like a base camp where we filled 26 18-wheelers with water and supplies. We also raised over $250,000 for the Red Cross and sent it all to Louisiana. They all took off for Louisiana. Our Grin Kids is our main charity. We started, this will be our 15th year. We take every October a plane load of kids who are terminally ill and chronically disabled from markets where our show is heard. We take them to Disney World, all expenses paid for 5 days.
Very cool.
And we cover everything: meals, hotel, transportation. Put it this way: when they arrive at the airport, we take their luggage out of their car, and they don't have to touch their luggage again until the day that we return to take it back to their car. It's all handled for them. And they get first-class treatment, chartered 747, food, surprises, everything you could ever want. We land and take them to a dinner the first night, and they just think they're going to dinner, but what they don't know is Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and Goofy show up and surprise them within 3 hours of being at Disney World. They've all met Mickey Mouse personally and had their picture taken and gotten an autograph. And then we take them to fireworks where they have a private display, a private seating area for the fireworks and that kind of stuff. So that's the majority of our work. So out of that, years ago, 14 years ago now, there was a show on television called Making the Band, and I just couldn't believe it was a boy band called O-Town, and I just couldn't believe they're going to flaunt this on ABC, how they're doing this. I've always wanted to be in a band, but I wanted to be in a rock band. I don't have any musical ability, had never been in a band, but I wanted to be the drummer in a band, so I started talking about it on the radio, and we decided to try to see if we could put a band together. And I met a guy who's become one of my closest and dearest friends. His name is Eddie Z in town, who's a musician. And we got together with some people who said, I'd like to be in your band. I mean, I had a stack, 200 people sent me emails wanting to be, if you need this, I can play keyboards and all that. And I had two rules. I don't want any girls in my band, and I don't want any keyboards in my band. Not because girls can't rock and keyboards aren't cool, but my favorite band didn't have girls and didn't have keyboards. Kiss, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, didn't have girls and didn't have keyboards. So we put this band together, and it was started as a lark. And they told me quickly, you're not good enough. You're a terrible drummer. And can you sing? I said, I don't know if I can sing or not. Well, you're going to have to be the singer if this is going to be a band because you're a suck drummer. So we ended up doing this thing. We played once at our Second Chance Prom, which is an event that we do every year to benefit green kids. And we started talking and thought, we can make this into something. And it has become this thing. And it just we started playing, and the guy said, look, we'll all play if it's for charity. And so all these guys and the crew donate their time for Ace and TJ's Green Kids. And through the years, we've played every arena in Charlotte. We opened in 2006. We opened for Bon Jovi in front of 17,000 people. We hold the two-night record of 15,000 one night and 16,000 the next night at a festival here in this area where we've shot a DVD. We've opened for Train. We've opened for Bon Jovi. We've opened for Bret Michaels. We've opened for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. All these things have just happened that are incredible, and not a single guy in this band has ever taken any money out of it. It all goes to benefit Ace and TJ's Green Kids. They've never gotten paid for playing. We've covered the expenses, but it's a first-class, full-blown, big rock show. We used to do pyro, and then we realized how stupid that was. We borrow gear and staging from 3 doors down sometimes because their stuff is in a warehouse over here that my buddy runs. So when you come see a show, it's like an arena show crammed into a club. And if we play outdoors or a big event, like we just did our $1 million show, we drew 2,500 people at this convention center just north of Charlotte. And it's a full-blown big show, smoke, a curtain drop, tons of lighting. The whole thing is as big as it can possibly get. It's as big time a show as you'll see anywhere else short of an arena.
Ace, before we let you go, where can people find your work online and your radio show?
Yeah, okay, the radio show, everything is at acetj.com, acetj.com, or just go to the App Store, your smartphone's App Store, and search for Ace and TJ, ACE ampersand TJ, or Ace and TJ, and you can download our app right there. And there's not only the radio show there that runs on a loop, but there's a bunch of extra shows that we do every single day. It's like its own little radio station that we're working on every day. And we've got a brand new version of our app coming out as soon as we get the approval from Apple. That'll hit your iPhone, and when the new one comes out, it's sick because it has video and all this kind of stuff on it. So, that's the best way to find us. You can find everything right there.
Well, Ace, thank you for coming on the Hoppe and SuperRICH Show on the Edge, onair.com, and we'd love to have you on again to talk more about radio, the future of radio, and more about your radio career.
Hey, man, I hope I haven't talked too much, but thank you
no
for
worries.
having me on. And it's exciting to see somebody who's as into radio as the two of you are. And anytime you'd love to have me, I'd love to be on. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good day, Ace.
Take care.
The Hoppe and SuperRICH Show.
For artist interviews, videos, and photos, visit The Edge on Air.